What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with another Joni Mitchell reaction from Ladies of the Canyon, 1970. Thank you, as always, to Nikola. And the next track is, what is it, Rainy Night House. So, okay, that gives us a visual, both in terms of the atmosphere, the environment, but also the specific location. But it's interesting, right? Because it is described, the adjective relates to an environmental condition, not an intrinsic quality of the house itself, or at least that's what it looks like on the surface. And as I've learned with Joni, her narratives, her scene painting is obviously, yes, but often and in ways that are not really predictable, complex and nuanced and multifaceted. So I imagine this will be a physical location, but probably there's more to it than that. I will try to follow as I can. This is Joni Mitchell. The tune is Rainy Night House, and it's from her 1970 album Ladies of the Canyon, though once again we are working with the 2021 remaster.
Took a taxi to your mother's home. She went to Florida and left you with your father's gun alone. Upon her small white bed I fell into a dream. You sat up all the night and watched me to see from the Sunday school. I sing soprano in the upstairs choir. You are a holy man on the FM radio. I sat up all the night and watched to see who in the world you might be. You called me beautiful. You called your mother. She was very tanned. So you packed your tent and you went to live out in the Arizona sand. You are a refugee from a wealthy family. You gave up all the golden factories to see who in the world you might be.
Again, what a crazy little story, which I think I caught most of, though there's aspects of I'm not quite sure how to take. First of all, it's a very beautiful piano melody. I enjoy her piano playing, and again, whether piano or guitar, she really has this artistic feel to the melody of her songs. But this one had a really rich and I don't want to say tragically beautiful, because it didn't feel tragic, but it felt like, if not melancholy, there was a bit of a darkness to it, even as it had a very beautiful sound. So great piano line, and her vocals, some of those extensions, including that last one, which is a little bit different. The other ones kind of had this little flow to them. I don't know if it was vibrato specifically, but a bit of a, rising and falling flow to the extensions. That last one seemed to get stronger and fuller as it came to the end. And then there were those, like, backing, which I assume that was also Joni, but like ethereal sort of flares. And obviously we had that part in the middle where she makes reference to, like, oh, I sing soprano in the, upstairs, like, church choir, which, if you've seen those churches where there's, like, the choir is, like, raised above the pews and the regular, what's the right word, congregation. So I immediately had, like, a visual there. And then we got that vocal part, which was sort of like this choir vocal, a choir of voices, which, again, was that all Joni? Were there actually some backing singers in that moment? I'm not sure. But okay, so she's saying, like, she goes in a taxi with this guy to his mother's house, but she's in Florida, maybe, like, retiring in Florida the way a lot of Americans do. But then we get later a reference to Arizona, which is a different, like, one is like a tropical climate, it's, a lot of humidity, and the other one is a very dry heat, but it's also a place where there are a fair number of senior citizens. So, like, I wondered the connection between that, but more on that in a moment. So then they get to this place, and she's saying, they go up and she's lying down on his mother's bed, and then he's watching her all night. He stays up and watches her. And at first I thought, like, oh, is she actually sleeping? And it's like, he's trying to figure out, who is she? But then we hear later that, like, she did the same thing. She's staying up, kind of looking at him, wondering, who exactly might you be? And we hear that he maybe is a holy man on the radio. And I was wondering, like, oh, is this a contrast? Is he actually a more passionate and, visceral person in an intimate space? But I don't think that was the suggestion, because then we hear that, like, okay, so he's a refugee from a wealthy family. I like that line. And that he gave up inheriting factories and a family business and lots of wealth that would have come with it, because he wanted to go find out who he might be. Like, he's on a journey of self-discovery. So it's not just like he's trying to figure out her, she's trying to figure out him, he's trying to figure out himself. And maybe he donned the frock, or the cloth, if you will, precisely as a way to get away from, expectations, and to find out who he was, maybe on a, spiritual or psychological level. So it doesn't feel like there's any physical relationship that happens, but it seems like the context of it is sort of like, hey, you want to go with me tonight, and, we can go to this cozy little place, which is like a family home of mine. But then there's, like, a reference to the father. What was it, like, the mother left, and so the father's religion or the father's God or something is there. So, like, I didn't quite know how to read that line, so I don't know how to stitch it all together. But it's as curious a depiction as I would have expected, and I especially like the part where it got to where, we find out this guy is on a journey to figure out who he might be, whatever's happening tonight, and whatever takes place within this rainy night house. So a really interesting tune, and as I said, I especially love that piano melody. So let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.